I used to believe that sacrifice guaranteed love, that if I worked hard enough, gave enough, prayed enough, my daughter would never forget me. My name is Josephine, but everyone in the neighborhood just called me Mama Joe. For 20 years, I scrubbed office floors and washed other people's clothes so my daughter, Danielle, could have a better life than mine. Every morning before sunrise, I'd tie my headscarf, whisper a prayer over her photo, and leave before the roosters crowed. By the time I got home at night, she'd be asleep, but her report cards on the table told me my tired hands were not in vain. Danielle was my dream walking on 2 legs. When she graduated from college, the first in our family, I cried like a child. People laughed, but they didn't know what that diploma meant to me. It wasn't paper. It was proof that my pain had purpose. Then she met Andrew, a handsome young man with a rich family, a smile too polished to be true. He spoke softly, but everything about him screamed power. When he came to our house for the first time, he wore a suit that cost more than I'd make in 3 months. I served him tea with trembling hands. He thanked me, but I could feel it, that quiet, polite judgment rich people wear when they think you don't belong. Still, I told myself, if my daughter loves him, then I will learn to love him too. Months later, they married. It was a small ceremony at a private venue I could barely enter. When I tried to help serve food, Andrew's mother stopped me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Guests don't work at their own daughter's wedding," she said. But I wasn't a guest. I was the woman who raised the bride. Still, I sat quietly, clapping, smiling, pretending not to notice how Danielle's laughter sounded different, softer, careful, like she was afraid of being too much. After the wedding, she moved into Andrew's big house across town. The kind with shining floors, tall ceilings, and doors that opened themselves. I visited once, just once, to drop off some homemade soup. The maid opened the door and looked at me like I was lost. "Mama," Danielle said when she saw me, surprised but not happy. I told her I came to see her, to bring her favorite stew. She smiled weakly, looked toward the hallway, and whispered, "Andrew doesn't really like people visiting unannounced." I left the food on the counter and went home in silence. Then months passed, and my daughter had her first child. My grandchild, a baby boy I'd prayed for every Sunday. I was overjoyed. I cooked, packed baby clothes, and took the first bus I could find to their house. When I arrived, Danielle looked tired but happy. She hugged me quickly, her hand soft against my worn palms. "Mama, you came." "Of course," I said. "Where else would I be?" The baby was beautiful, small, warm, with eyes that fluttered like butterfly wings. I held him close, whispering, "Welcome to this world, little one. Your grandmother's here." But before I could even kiss his forehead again, Andrew walked in. His face changed when he saw me holding the baby. "Josephine," he said, his tone sharp but polite. "I thought Danielle needed rest." "I was just helping," I said softly. "Cooking, cleaning, holding the baby." He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that cuts. "Your presence makes Danielle anxious. She needs peace." I froze. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. But then I saw it, the look in my daughter's eyes. She didn't defend me. She just looked away. "Andrew," I began, but my voice broke. Danielle stood up slowly. "Mama, maybe it's best if you rest at home tonight. I'll call you tomorrow." I felt my heart collapse in slow motion. My daughter, the child I fed before feeding myself, the one I carried through hunger and heat, couldn't even look at me. I packed my bag in silence. My hands trembled as I folded the same sweater I wore when I first took her to school. I could hear Andrew in the hallway, his voice low but firm, talking about boundaries, appearances, and respect. Before I left, I turned to Danielle one last time. She was holding the baby, her face pale under the soft light. "I understand," I said quietly. "I'll go." She opened her mouth to speak but said nothing. As I stepped out into the cold night, the rain began to fall. My old umbrella broke halfway down the street, but I didn't stop. I just kept walking, each step heavier than the last. Weeks turned into months. I tried not to think about that night, but the memory lived inside me like a scar that wouldn't heal. Every time I saw a mother holding her baby at the bus stop or in the grocery line, my chest tightened. I told myself Danielle was busy, that the baby was healthy, that maybe Andrew had softened. Lies are easier to swallow when they taste like hope. I went back to work cleaning houses, the same work I'd done all my life. But everything felt quieter now. When my coworkers talked about their grandchildren, I smiled and nodded, pretending mine was somewhere far away. I never told them he was just across town. Some nights, I caught myself boiling soup, packing baby clothes, even setting aside little toys I found at yard sales. Then I'd stop halfway, remembering Andrew's words echoing in my head. Your presence makes her anxious. One afternoon, after a long day scrubbing floors, I sat on my porch with a cup of weak tea when my neighbor, Mrs. Carter, waved from across the fence. You heard about that storm coming tonight? She asked. I nodded. The clouds already hung low and heavy. Just another one, I said. They always pass. But this one didn't pass easily. By evening, thunder shook the windows, and the rain came down hard enough to blur the streetlights. The power flickered, then went out completely. The city sank into darkness. I lit a candle and sat alone, listening to the storm rage outside. That's when I heard it, my phone ringing. The number flashed on the screen, and my heart stopped. Danielle. Mama, her voice cracked through the static. The baby, he's not breathing right. The power's out. Andrew can't reach the hospital. The roads are flooded. I was already on my feet. Stay calm, I said. Keep him warm. I'm coming. I didn't even think. I just grabbed my bag, wrapped my scarf tight, and ran into the storm. The wind nearly pushed me back, rain soaking through my clothes as I waded through knee-deep water. Buses weren't running, taxis were nowhere in sight, so I walked. I don't know how long it took, maybe 30 minutes, maybe a lifetime, but when I reached their neighborhood, my body was trembling from cold and fear. The whole street was dark except for one house with candles flickering in the windows, their house. I banged on the door, shouting, Danielle, it's me. When she opened it, her face was pale and wet with tears. The baby was in her arms, his tiny chest rising and falling too fast, his skin clammy. His fever won't break, she sobbed. Andrew's trying to call someone, but no one's answering. Andrew appeared behind her, shirt half-buttoned, eyes wild. There's no signal. The roads are closed. He stopped when he saw me. Josephine, what are you doing here? I came for my family, I said firmly, brushing past him. I took the baby from Danielle's shaking hands and pressed him against my chest. His breathing was shallow, desperate. I could feel his heartbeat racing like a frightened bird. Get me towels, I said, and a bowl of cool water. Danielle obeyed instantly. I dipped the towel and placed it on the baby's forehead, whispering softly, You're okay, little one. Grandma's here. Andrew hovered nearby, pacing. Shouldn't we wait for an ambulance? By the time they get here, he'll be worse, I said. Let me work. I opened my old leather pouch, the one I'd carried for years, and pulled out the herbs and oils my mother had taught me to use. I crushed a few leaves between my fingers, mixed them into warm water, and dabbed it on the baby's chest. Danielle watched, trembling. Mama, will he be okay? God didn't let me walk through that storm for nothing, I said softly. Minutes passed like hours. I kept fanning him gently, cooling his body, whispering prayers under my breath. Slowly, so slowly I almost missed it, his breathing began to steady. His tiny fists unclenched. His cry, weak but alive, broke through the sound of the rain. Danielle let out a sob of relief, collapsing onto the floor. Andrew just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. He's going to be fine, I whispered. But you'll need to keep him warm now. I handed the baby back to Danielle, who clutched him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Mama, I'm sorry, she choked out. For everything. For that night. For letting him speak to you that way. I sat beside her and stroked her hair like I used to when she was little. You don't owe me sorry, I said gently. You owe your child the truth. That love isn't measured by comfort, but by sacrifice. She cried harder, burying her face in my lap. Andrew knelt beside us, silent. The storm still raged outside, but inside that house, something shifted, the kind of silence that comes when pride dies and love is born again. Hours later, when the power returned and the baby slept peacefully, I stood to leave. Danielle grabbed my hand. Please don't go, Mama, she said through tears. Stay. For a moment, I looked at her, the same little girl who once dreamed of escaping poverty, now realizing the price of forgetting where she came from. "I'll stay," I said softly, "but not because you need me tonight. I'll stay because I never stopped." She nodded, tears glistening on her cheeks. Andrew whispered, "Thank you." I smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. Thank the storm. It showed you what money can't fix." That night, as I sat beside my sleeping grandchild, I felt something deep inside me heal. The wound left by rejection, the silence of pride, the ache of being unseen. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a mother again. Morning came slow, soft and golden. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled like rain, like something washed clean. I watched the baby sleep in my arms, his tiny fingers curled around mine, and I whispered a quiet prayer of thanks. Danielle was in the kitchen making coffee. I could hear her humming an old gospel tune, one I used to sing while mopping floors. When she brought me a cup, her eyes were swollen from crying, but there was a peace in her face I hadn't seen in years. "Mama," she said softly, "I don't deserve your forgiveness." I smiled faintly. "Child, forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something love gives, even when it hurts." She sat beside me, her voice trembling. "Last night, when he stopped breathing, I thought I was being punished. For pushing you away." I shook my head. "No, baby. Life doesn't punish. It teaches." Just then, Andrew stepped into the room. He looked exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that comes from guilt more than lack of sleep. He cleared his throat. "Mrs. Josephine," he began, "I owe you an apology." I looked at him quietly. "For what?" "For everything," he said, lowering his head. "For judging you. For the way I spoke to you that night. You saved my son's life, and his voice cracked. I almost made sure he'd never meet the woman who could." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at the both of them, my daughter and her husband, broken open by life, humbled by love. "You don't need to apologize," I said gently. "Just promise me something. Never let pride speak louder than your heart again." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I promise." In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Danielle called every day, sometimes just to ask how I was feeling, other times to tell me the baby had smiled, or rolled over, or said mama. She started visiting my apartment again, bringing little gifts, trying to make up for lost time. But I didn't need the gifts. Her presence was enough. One Sunday, she came with Andrew and the baby for dinner. I cooked their favorite, rice, roasted chicken, and cornbread. The table felt alive again, full of laughter and warmth. As I cleared the plates, Andrew said, "Josephine, we've been talking. We'd like you to move in with us. The baby needs his grandmother." I froze, the dish still in my hands. For a moment, I saw the ghost of that night, me standing at the door, rain pouring, his words cutting through me like glass. "Your presence makes her anxious." Now, the same man was asking me to come home. I smiled gently. "I appreciate it, Andrew, truly. But I have my own little corner of peace now. You and Danielle need to build yours. I'll visit, though, as often as you'll have me." Danielle's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of gratitude, not shame. "You're right, Mama," she said. "I just want you close." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I never left, baby. You just couldn't see me for a while." Months passed, and life slowly found its rhythm again. The baby, Micah, they named him, grew fast. He'd grab my earrings, laugh at my wrinkled cheeks, and crawl straight into my lap whenever I visited. Sometimes I'd sit in the rocking chair by the window, holding him while Danielle and Andrew talked quietly on the couch. And I'd think, maybe this is what peace feels like. Not perfect, not painless, just whole. One afternoon, Danielle called and said the company where Andrew worked was hosting a family event. "They're giving an award to the employees' families," she said excitedly. "I want you to come." I hesitated. "You sure I'll fit in there?" "Mama," she said firmly, "you belong there." So I went. The event was at a big hall downtown, the kind of place that used to make me nervous. But when I stepped in, I didn't feel small anymore. I wore my best dress, simple, clean, and proud. When Andrew went up to receive his award, he held a microphone and said something I'll never forget. He said, "This honor isn't mine. It belongs to the woman who taught my wife what real strength looks like and who showed me what love means when it has nothing left to prove." Mrs. Josephine, would you please stand? Every head turned. For a moment, I froze, then I stood, heart pounding, eyes wet. The applause filled the room, but all I could see was my daughter smiling at me through her tears. When it was over, Andrew came down from the stage, handed me the plaque, and whispered, "This is yours." Danielle hugged me tight, her voice trembling. "You saved our family, Mama." I smiled and said, "No, baby. I just reminded you what family means." That night, as I lay in bed, I thought back to everything. The years of struggle, the night I walked out into the rain, the storm that changed everything. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel like a cleaner, or a burden, or a mistake from someone's past. I felt like the foundation beneath a house that finally stood strong again. And as I drifted to sleep, I whispered a prayer for every mother who's ever been told she wasn't enough. May the same storm that tried to break you be the one that brings them back to your door.